Thank you for that live report. To an update on a story we first brought you last night. A West Springfield man has been arrested after he posted threatening videos to social media on Sunday. The man, identified as Safaldine Fawzi of West Springfield, was holding what appeared to be a firearm while making threats and spitting on the Jewish Community Center sign in Longmeadow. Fawzi was then taken into custody without incident early Monday morning. Western Mass News stopped by the Longmeadow Police Department and spoke with Chief Robert Stocks. He tells us Fawzi is a, quote, self-proclaimed influencer, and while freedom of speech is generally protected by the First Amendment, law enforcement will intervene when deemed unsafe.
We don't enforce freedom of speech, nor does anyone want us to. However, when someone's speech becomes threatening or there's potential for harm or violence, we're obligated to step in.
Chief Stocks goes on to add that the Longmeadow Police Department will continue to do everything they can to make sure the community is safe.